Okay, I'm super excited to be here as the host of this conversation between Bigtincan, Sales Confidence, and Equifax. I'm the founder of Sales Confidence, and Sales Confidence aim is to build the world's most valuable B2B sales community. As part of that, we are doing a series with Bigtincan to access the minds of some of the leading sales enablement experts from around the world. And I'm super proud and excited that we've got Arup on the call in this conversation today, as well as a representative from Bigtincan. So I'm just going to ask them to introduce themselves, and then we're going to go into some deep conversation covering a number of topics that I think are going to excite, enlighten, and educate you on how you can approach enablement and sales process and people and technology within your business. So let's get started with this conversation and go into the introductions. Arup, can you introduce yourself, your background, your experience and expertise, and why you decided to join us today?
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for such a warm welcome, James. And Beverlie, great to see you again, and great to be connected to you again. So, James, actually, by the way, I love your event. So I've got to say, I'm thrilled to be able to participate in this process. I know, having been to Sales Confidence events as well, you have some great speakers on stage. So I will do my best to serve you well this afternoon,
I'm sure you will.
this evening, afternoon. So a little bit about me. I've been with Equifax UK now for just a little bit 10 months. And always had a career pathway through financial services, so kind of FinServ as opposed to FinTech. My career pathway has traditionally been in sales operations, and I've done actually a couple of roles as well in marketing operations and marketing analytics. But over the last 4 years, I've been gravitating a lot more over towards sales enablement as well. So my current role at Equifax allows me to do both sales operations and sales enablement, which I love, and I kind of love both dimensions. I sort of see the two parts as being, the two sides of the same coin in terms of, working towards enabling better productivity through a B2B sales organization. So the fact that I get to have both of those areas under my remit is a real
Awesome.
joy. I'd say very, very quickly about me, because of my sales operations background and because I kind of started off my career in a sales performance analytics role. I'd say one of my kind of key strengths is data analytics and insights. I'd absolutely define it as one of my USPs. Whereas I think a lot of, kind of my peers come from a sales background, in terms of having had a sales career pathway before moving into sales enablement. I'm a little bit of, or what I hopefully characterize as a bit of a dark horse, because I come from maybe more of a data analytics and insights background. But actually, I do think it gives me that ability, and I think we've heard this narrative a lot recently in terms of being able to identify real clear outcomes, KPIs, the so whats, and especially when it comes down to calibrating revenue. So I think I've got some of those strengths.
I guess that'd be helpful. I think we're probably we didn't necessarily have this in the prep questions, but we're drilled down into that data aspect, because companies right now more than ever are driving efficiency and productivity, and therefore understanding the data and what outcomes you are driving as a business is really, really important. So that's going to be a helpful perspective. Thank you for sharing that introduction. Beverlie?
Also want to thank you for having me join today. I'm really excited about this, having worked with Arup and James working with you. It's a pleasure to be here. So my experience, I was in sales for probably upwards of about 20 years. And from there, moved into a sales enablement role. So I have been doing sales enablement now for about 7 years. And I would say when I think about sales enablement, I think of it through a few different lenses. The importance of being agile, the importance of scale. Today more than ever, we are resource constrained. So, how do we leverage ourselves to prioritize the work that we have to do? I think of it also through tribal knowledge and, to your point, data, right? Metrics. How do we align with the sales leaders? And I think it's great that you're coming at this aspect through a data lens, because that's going to become even more critical as we move forward in enablement and operations.
Amazing. So are you thinking about the last 10 months, Arup, and, joining a new organization, scoping out what is required? Some of the initial areas I'd like to touch on are around kind of people, process, technology. Kind of where did you initially start, and what have you been working on through the transformation that you've been supporting over in your current role?
Yeah. So I'd say this is the first time in my career where I feel like I've really confidently come into an organization and been able to get strategy moving. Not quite from day one, but I'd already been talking to my hiring manager before I joined the organization. Went through the interview process, which was really positive, and a lot less formal than interview processes I've been through in the past. And it gave me the opportunity to kind of understand some of the challenges and already construct some of the strategy that I wanted to. So when I came into the organization, I sort of laid out this pathway of wanting to deliver three really simple things. Number one is just, ensure that as an organization, we're able to, and we continue to improve our ability to identify what good looks like. And by the way, there's no silver bullets. It's really simple. Number one, identify what good looks like. Number two, identify and establish some of the educational programs that effectively allow the rest of the organization to lift its bar and get up to that level of good. And then number three, look at all of the different technology capabilities that we want to be able to put into place to be able to help drive some consistency and scalability. And that's my 23 strategy, right? Because again, that has both harnesses a little bit of sales operations and sales enablement. Sales enablement is way more than just education and coaching, etc. But one of the areas that I kind of immediately recognize is that there has been a sort of the sales team at Equifax UK for no fault of anyone's at all or in particular, but they've been a little bit underserved in terms of training and coaching and some of those skills and kind of consistency in terms of sales skill set and reinforcement in terms of sales skill set. So that's kind of my primary focus for 2023. So that's been my strategy. Just executing against that really quickly, I put into place, within the first 90 days, a few processes where I could start to get a handle on the data that we've got in our CRM system. Again, we'll get to that because we have a homegrown CRM system at the moment. So it's not necessarily as sophisticated as kind of fully fledged CRM systems like Salesforce, HubSpot, etc. But at least we've got some data, and it's given me a view in terms of what good does look like. And I now have a weekly conversation with sales reps, particularly the top performers. So again, I can start to get that insight. Number two, I've hired in a direct report who leads the sales enablement function, but sales enablement practice principally at the moment from, again, that education piece, and we've got some of that getting rolled out. Then number three, super excited because we are getting Salesforce, and I'm actually a bit more excited than that. We're also getting Brainshark. We've just deployed Brainshark as we rolled out. I think we deployed it on Christmas Eve, I think, actually. So as we rolled out of 22, the paperwork got signed on Christmas Eve. So super excited about that. As with any big organization, it takes time to get this stuff moving, but that's kind of where we're at.
Arup, I just wanted to add, when you think about what good looks like, for me, I'm in a similar situation as you, trying to identify what good looks like. And one of the processes that I found that was helpful was, you mentioned interviewing, the A players on and understanding what the steps they go through. But I also found it's also enlightening to interview the C players, and to identify what they're not going through. So that then helps me think about what training I have to do in order to, upskill everyone.
It's a great point, Beverlie. I've got a total of 80 folks in my UK sales organization. So I'm not getting through them as quickly as I'd like to, but I'm doing my best. But yeah, you're absolutely, it's a very valid.
Can I ask, Beverlie, why do you feel, and I'm adding questions here, so you can ask me to move on if you want, but I just wondered, at the stage that Equifax is at, why do you think Brainshark is such a powerful solution, in terms of where they're at, in terms of their evolution of a sales business?
So I think it does a number of different things. First off, when you think about selling today, right, we can train reps and they may understand the, what they're listening to, but are they in a position where they can then articulate that to their customers, and be effective and be on message? So I think it's interesting when you think about sales professionals, right? In If you were in any other profession, if you were an athlete, if you were a surgeon, you would practice with purpose. And yet in sales, we don't necessarily embrace that. We just allow some sales reps, to take a course and then go out in front of a customer, and we don't have that step in the middle where we're assuring they're confident and they're on message and they're aligned with what you want them to say. So I think that's one area, Arup, where you're going to see some uh, changes in behavior with brain shark. And then the other I would say is having that ability to leverage brain shark for tribal knowledge so that you can more quickly and efficiently upskill all of your players.
Yeah, I think that's really fair, Beverlie, and that's exactly the use case that we've started on. So we've started off with the coaching capability in HR for two reasons. One of the drivers is that at the moment, where of course we're going through a process. Alan in my team is new to the organization, so am I. So we're kind of almost still going through our process of identifying what some of the challenges and some of the needs and some of the kind of the enablement requirements are for the organization. So neither Alan nor I have a particularly large amount of bandwidth. The coaching capability is fantastic because actually it serves as a really great, kind of we've been messaging it as this is a great safety net, right? So utilize that safety net to get yourself on point. Go through the iterations. So just to your point, like any athlete, we've been using the kind of the athletics analogy a lot as well, sporting athletics analogy a lot. And so we've constantly been going on about, it's that whole process of marginal gains. You improve your marginal gains by doing the practice. You've got to do 7, 8 practices at least and feel comfortable in terms of how you present yourself on camera, if you're getting the right tonality, if you're getting the right messaging, if you're getting the right points, etc. All of that stuff. So we've just started with that, and I think it's a great approach towards getting our team, our sales team, and again, folks, we're not from a SaaS background, right? And James, I know a lot of your audience will be B2B SaaS. In fact, your audience is principally B2B SaaS. So part of your audience might very well be thinking, well, this is a no-brainer. This is a no-brainer, right? Actually, for us in financial services, we're way behind the curve in terms of adoption of some of these technologies. Just even the mindset of recognizing these technologies can help us. So for the fact that we've got this up and running is great. The fact that we've got the coaching tool up and running, which is at the moment low bandwidth task on myself and Alan, my team, the gentleman that I've hired for sales, is also gives us a
It's
good
interesting, and it's helpful though that you share that perspective, because you're right. We were kind of born out of the SaaS space, but our reach now is looking to go beyond SaaS into professional services, to financial services, other industries where some of that knowledge and IP, can be accessed. And this is, I feel like you're connecting these worlds. You've talked about Salesforce implementation, you're talking about Brainshark, you're talking about the evolution of upskilling the knowledge of your workforce. And yes, in SaaS, it might happen faster, often does. But the fact that you're adopting that is really interesting. I just before I go into the next question, I'm just curious because of that. And again, you can answer or not. Have you had a bit more reluctance? Have you faced some challenges on mindset where people have been like, "Do we really need this? We're not ready for this right now."
Absolutely, without doubt. So even with Brainshark, I've had to very carefully message that this is a safety net. It gives you a practice ground, etc. I haven't even really tackled anything like conversation intelligence as yet, right? And I know I've been talking again with Bigtincan about voice vibes, which is embedded into into Brainshark for conversation intelligence. I know it's going to blow people's minds. They're going to be like, do what? Do what? They're going to be like, hold on a second. Hold on a second. Every time you talk to a vendor, every time, one of my salespeople talks to a vendor, they talk to tons. They always coming back to me like, oh, we should be talking to Bora, we should be talking to, okay. You remember when you get on that conversation, you see that little recording chatbot in the top. Yeah. No, it's fantastic. It's not an issue. So what if we do the same? No, we can't do that. So I think there's a little bit of a journey that I need to help take the organization on. I love my salespeople, and I think that they're totally open to it, and they're totally open to change. They're totally open to transformation. But it will take us a little bit longer, James, than potentially a B2B SaaS company.
That's fair.
And
go on, Beverlie.
I think we see that. I was going to say we see that often, right? The how do we manage that adoption and engagement? So some of the suggestions that I have is, first off, as salespeople, right? What's in it for them, right? It's all about them. So I think the more when you're deploying any software, you can sort of say, this is what's in it for you. And if it's more so, the executive leadership that's saying that, I think you're going to get more traction faster. The other thing that I would say is, if you have people that are skeptical or managers that are skeptical, focus in on that one sales group where that manager tends to be more of a maverick, and see the success you're getting there, and then share that success across the organization, because we as salespeople are competitive, so it's going to get the competitive juices flowing between the managers and between the sales reps, so you'll get again greater adoption.
Great advice. Thank you for sharing, Beverlie. So on to our next question. You brought it up earlier based on your experience, and I think it's helpful to express the differences for the audience. How would you describe the differences between sales operations and your focus there versus sales enablement?
Sure. Beverlie, I tell you what, why don't we split this? Should I do sales ops and then you do sales enablement?
Sure.
Kind of both provide our perspectives on it. Cool. So I think for me, and this is a generalization. So to a certain extent, I apologize with generalization, but also to a certain extent, I think it works quite neatly in my mind as a sort of a defining model. So I see sales operations and sales enablement as the two parts towards driving productivity. If you look at the kind of the classic productivity formula, productivity is the multiplication of efficiency and effectiveness, right? And so sales operations, again, this is very broad brush generalization statement. Sales operations is all about being able to create efficiency. It's like looking at a process, how you execute that process, getting technology in place to be able to execute that process faster and more consistently, time and time again. And the effectiveness bit is how good are you at executing that process. So your overall productivity comes from the combination of those two factors working in I suppose in concert together. So I sort of see sales enablement as that the process of getting people to be more able, increasing their aptitude, and so therefore increasing their effectiveness at how they execute a process. Sales operations gives you all of the kind of the hardware to be able to do the efficient part of that process.
Yeah, I mean, I think you and I are totally aligned on that. So I would just add, when I think about enablement, I would add it's, including like the content, the guidance, the training, to be more effective with your buyers. And I think of it a little bit, and this is my US centric mindset, right? If I think about a football team, right, I think more the operations are the guys and women on the field helping the game at the moment, with what decisions should be made, what processes should be put in place, while enablement is more, the people in the back room that's doing the PT and doing the training during the week, to help them be gameplay ready. So
that's actually a very good visual.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
for our UK and European listeners, I think they should understand that perspective, Beverlie, because we're fans of
I
American
love that.
football as well. So thanks for sharing that. That's very helpful. Um, so going to those basics that you've on, just digging deeper on the sales ops side, Arup, like where have you had to put like the basic framework in place? Touched on it briefly early in your introduction, but could you just go a bit deeper on like, okay, this is where I've gone deep in terms of my focus on a sales operation side, and then maybe you can share how you think it's going to evolve as time goes on with your time in business.
Yeah, totally. So for me, sales operations comes down to kind of five key work stream areas, five key domains. One, you've got pipeline analytics and performance analytics, and obviously that ties into forecasting. That's weekly, bi-weekly, whatever that forecasting process is. A second is all about territory management. Then potentially even, some organizations have sales ops setting targets, some don't. It just depends on where that line of reporting is. Obviously, sales ops can't set targets if they've got a line of reporting up into the chief revenue officer, right? Because that's basically sales setting its own targets. But in operations that I've worked in, businesses I've worked in the past, sales ops was separate to the sales organization. And so had the opportunity to take both the territory management piece into setting targets and quota management. Number three is all about being able to shape the incentive scheme as well. Sometimes that sits in HR, but again, I've experienced the ability to shape incentives and incentive plans and schemes within sales ops. Number four is all about the sales tools, right? So sales ops is the business side owner of the sales tools, pretty much across the board. And then number five is essentially being able to provide, again, kind of ongoing management information. So those are the sorts of the kind of the five key areas. In terms of Equifax, I've across those five areas, I think I've touched every single one because there's been a need to be able to, number one, fine tune all of the kind of the pipeline analytics and the forecasting process. That's been absolutely key. Joined summer of last year, we were edging out of Q2, coming into Q3. So there was, in my mind, again, it sounds judgmental and it's not intended to be. I think there was definitely a lot of discipline that we could have factored into the forecasting process and just getting much clearer on the numbers, being really honest as well, right? Because a lot of forecasting is about that honesty. It's not trying to overpitch or underpitch. It's just about having an honest, realistic expectation of how we're going to close the month, how we're going to close the quarter, and what does that mean in terms of run rate through to the back end of the year. So getting a lot more discipline around that. Again, this happens in a lot of our organizations where, and some of this is just basics, which is you get in, you have people in a room, everybody sits down, loads of people, senior people make commitments, and it's just even getting the discipline of, okay, who's taking the actions? What are we going to do? How are we going to track against those actions and just make sure that when it comes to forecasting, we've got clarity over what we need to do, who's doing it, and how that gives us momentum towards towards quarter end. Schemes, incentive, not owned by me. We've got a rewards manager, but I've been able to get involved in that because I think that's such a strong motivation driver for sales to know, like, how am I getting paid, and what are the different levers that I've got. Again, we may have had it a little bit overcomplicated. We're trying to get to a simpler version. As with all things, there's always trade-offs, so there's that discussion. And I'd say the third call out as well is definitely in terms of some of the reporting, just improving that. I've got a gentleman in my team who has been moving a lot of our reporting over towards Tableau. So again, just getting ourselves into a space where we've got that MI, it's visible, it's visual. We'll be clearly thinking about that and what that means when we get Salesforce in place as well. So it's all of the fundamentals, James. We've been working through all of it. And I enjoy it. You know what? I mean, I've done this a number of times, but hopefully you can see I am really passionate about it. I really enjoy it. It's nice to have challenges in some
Yeah,
respects.
that's helpful. It's helpful. Sorry to just reiterate. It's just helpful on how you frame what you've done and what you're doing, and you've obviously iterated that on a few times. So sorry, Beverlie, what have you got to add?
No, I was going to say, I love the buckets that you used, right? And from my point of view, the stronger that like pipeline analytics, the forecasting, right? All of that data analytics, that then allows me to make more intelligent decisions on how I'm going to spend my time and what training that I should be giving to my sales team, because I have this data flow coming down that's going to help me in determining my priorities.
And just to build on that, Beverlie, can you maybe take it on the perspective of the sales enablement journey? That you're typically taking a company on with Bigtincan and other aspects of your solution, but there's a philosophy that you're applying, your frameworks, and a process, and then obviously there's the technology. Do you have just a perspective on that you might be able to share?
So I'm going to go back to Arup's example. So if you think about, you've got this pipeline forecasting that you've been working on. So what then allows me to do is, let's say, to take a look and give more perspective on what the conversion rates are. How good are we doing with prospecting? Are we moving our deals, through discovery? Are reps getting stuck with handling objections? Are we closing deals within the forecasted time frame? So all of those data points sort of give me direction on what skills are needed, what teams do I have to spend more time with, so that overall, we're just that additional resources and insights that are helping helping you with your data, right? Helping you hit your number.
Amazing. Have you got anything to add, Arup?
Yeah, so I mean, and this is where I think the technology is, if you've got the technology, don't take it for granted. Use it, adopt it well. Because we've done exactly that. So, I've been looking at the numbers and just getting a sense of what's the kind of the sort of the tailback we need in terms of pipeline, and how many leads / opportunities do we need, and all of that. And I've been able to work all of that out, and we need more. So okay, I mean, simple answer there: do more prospecting. Okay, okay, to take a step back, you've got a number of strategies. Of course, we can work with marketing from a demand gen side and get more leads coming through to us. We can look at outsourcing a number of different activities into external sales agencies, etc. And the third, of course, is our own sales team. Are they able to do more prospecting? Do they have the skill set? Do they have the confidence, etc., to be able to do that? And every single time I come back to that question, we're working through some of that. I wish, in all honesty, I genuinely wish we had some sort of conversation intelligence tool in place right now, because that's the way you'd be able to absolutely hear and pick up on what are some of the challenges. Is it an underconfidence in terms of being able to do outreach or outbound? Is it not enough time spent necessarily thinking through how to plan your market and how to plan your account within that market, and how to plan within lines of business within your account to be able to identify the opportunity? Is it time? Is it time management? And this happens a lot as well. Is it time management that just people aren't putting aside those blocks of time that they need every single week, every single day to be able to dedicate towards prospecting and doing outbound? So we don't have enough insights there. I'm trying to glean those insights either through a really simple CRM system or through conversations directly with salespeople, with sales leaders. And sometimes you don't get the honest truth coming through, right? Which is understandable.
And
so yeah, totally.
I think too, when you talked about this scenario, right? You're trying to get more leads, but while we're waiting, for that marketing cadence to start, we can also take a step back and think, how do I get more wins out of the at bats that I'm doing today? So that's sort of where I come in, thinking about the conversion rates, looking at the state of the sales team, looking at what objections they're dealing with, and to your point, Arup, are they being confident? Are they on message? Are they enthusiastic? What are the things that I can control and the levers I can move immediately to at least win more at bats?
I think I'm going to ask this next question to Beverlie first, if I may, around the future of sales tech and your perspective on where you see it going.
Sure. I'll give you my perspective. Would love to hear both of yours. So I think a couple things are going to happen, right? I think that there's a lot of technology that's out there, and we need to evaluate, what's being used and how do we consolidate our technologies just so that we are more efficient. I think that we're going to need to look at it more so through the lens of our customers and our buyers. So, what can we be doing to make their journey more impactful? And I think also through the lens of our internal processes, how do we make it less friction so that things are able to, move more smoothly through the process?
Good. I've got some suggestions to add. Arup?
It's all about generative AI at the moment, isn't it? It's all about generative AI. So no, but I mean, it is super exciting, right? Because I was kind of on ChatGPT the other day and just sort of playing around with it and just getting into the stream of asking it questions and giving it some context knowledge. And it started to come back with, I started to ask it questions like, what type of engagement strategy do you think I should take with client ABC? And it started to come back with some really interesting responses. And once it was been like, okay, Equifax UK, this is what you do. These are some of the challenges that you have. This is your client that you're talking to. These are some of the challenges that we've observed, or I've observed, that the generative AI is observed, etc. And I was kind of like, oh, this is kind of really cool. Because what this starts to do is, I know there's loads of use cases in terms of getting your outbound emails constructed, all of that, ton of that stuff on LinkedIn. But I also kind of think that this is a great opportunity to be able to help diagnose a situation. You've basically got the AI going out there and being able to scan a huge amount of information. And where I kind of think it's really exciting is, I'm sure this will get implemented, right? Because I guess, again, within the Salesforce product set, they've got Einstein. And Einstein as the sort of AI and machine learning capability that provided next best action. So kind of Einstein was, if you had a broad range of the Salesforce product set, you would have sets of signals, buyer signals coming through from your marketing automation. You would have different attributes in the CRM system based on actual client data and sort of behavioral usage of your products. And then, of course, you've got the third data set within CRM, or that CRM block of what your salesperson is doing. Now, if you add in generative AI, so that system can go out and it can read a ton of stuff on the web and can come back and go, by the way, your client, it's experiencing these challenges, and we think that these challenges are not too dissimilar to, company XYZ, where we've observed da 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 da. Suddenly, you start to get a much richer sense of your customer, your prospect, what challenges they've got, what needs they have, where the opportunity is to really talk value from the get-go. I think it's like, it could be like incredible just in terms of how it gives you a lift. And I'm sure that, the top performers will absolutely use it. Of course they will. They'll utilize it to give themselves that lift, and they'll take away the repetitive work of having to do the homework and the research, etc., and use that to give themselves that lift so that they are that much more prepared.
I love that. Yeah, that's super.
I think it's going to be an awesome.
Super exciting. I think to give you my summary, I agree with Beverlie on consolidation. I think you expect from a company who's servicing you a broad breadth of services rather than getting individual solutions from individual separate companies. I think if you look at what happened in the marketing technology space, there were large acquisitions. So big companies like Salesforce acquired big MarTech companies. Adobe did the same. And then, these companies started to have a broader offering. I think sales tech is going through that. I think there's been a few companies that have been acquired by private equity, but there will be some listings, there will be some exits, but there will be a lot more consolidation. Second, I agree on the AI points. Don't know what that's going to really look like, but I'm sure that every company is thinking about sales tech anyway, that AI is going to add value to their solution and help speed up tasks for sales reps. I don't think it's going to replace salespeople, fortunately, but I think it's going to make things more efficient and faster to those that can grasp how to use it effectively. And then the third point would be around, aligning, and I think Beverlie talked on this with the buyer. What does the buyer want at the end of the day? What's the buyer's perspective? How are we making their life easier? And often they're saying they want less of a sales person involved, but actually the larger the deal size, the more the salesperson adds a lot of expertise to the deal. So we're not going anywhere again, but I think aligning to the buyer needs and the buyer committee needs is increasingly important. All right. Well, we've already gone into some fascinating depth to this conversation. So thank you for both of your perspectives. Just coming to the end now, really thinking, is there anything else that you think, I wish I mentioned that, or anything you would like to impart on the audience about 2023, or, about the future, or where you're going? Anything that you might want to share before we wrap up this conversation? Who's going first?
I'll take the lead on it. I think that when you looking at the lens of sales enablement, and most recently with a downward economy, a lot of sales enablement groups have shrunken. I would say that we, as sales enablement practitioners, need to look more through the lens of how we leverage tribal knowledge. There's so much fabulous, nuggets in our sales reps' heads, and what can we be doing to sort of pull out that information and to share that across the organization. And I think it's a matter of a few factors. Sales enablement resources are a little smaller these days. I think coming off of COVID and people being in a remote work environment, for so long, that we've lost that water cooler chat. And I think, that similar to ourselves, like, we like to hear things from our peers, versus hearing it from our managers. And so I think the more we can be doing to share knowledge across the organization, the faster we're going to be able to accelerate those sales cycles and efficiencies that Arup had earlier spoke of.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I suppose for me, I think the exciting space, or the opportunity space, that I sort of see sales enablement as having an opportunity to fill is that kind of go-to-market coordination role. And I talked about this recently, where go-to-market's really quite exciting at the moment. You see it in a lot of job descriptions, but I think the big challenge with go-to-market, trialed this in terms of getting the model right at Elevon, in my previous company. I think we're still working towards trying to get a neat model in place for Equifax. I think the big challenge with go-to-market is that, number one, because it's the very nature of how you bring a proposition into the marketplace, I think there's this notion that actually kind of everybody owns it. There's almost this democratic, everybody owns it. And I think part of the challenge of this democratic notion of everybody is responsible for go-to-market is because you have lots of senior stakeholders. It's not necessarily just owned by the CRO. You've got the CMO, the CRO, the CFO. So if you're talking about product commercialization, pricing perspective, or incentive plans or targets or anything of that nature. So you've got the CFO wanting things done. Hey, get this done, guys. Let's do this. Let's get this campaign underway. Do I need to throw money at it from a spiff perspective? You've got the CRO who absolutely wants to do that, but then kind of wants to protect the team. You've got the CMO. You've got all of these different, oftentimes really senior stakeholders with their own agendas. Everybody's working to the same goal, but with their own agendas. And what you end up with sometimes, I feel, is that what I've observed is that you don't necessarily have somebody on point to help drive really clear, coordinated, orchestrated go-to-market. And I genuinely think sales enablement has an opportunity to be able to step into that space and fulfill that gap. I think we're already really well engaged with a number of those stakeholders. I think we're well respected amongst those stakeholders. I think our ability to own GTM and to provide that coordinating action is, I think it's a huge opportunity. So, I sort of think about 2023 and beyond for sales enablement, certainly within the context of my team. That's one of the areas I'd be saying, look, give it to me, because I'm going to help build that process, help build that consistency.
I love that. You're perfect for this show because you're exuberating confidence and belief in that. And I think there's many sales enablement professionals out there that need that extra boost and need that support to believe that they can contribute in the way that you've just outlined to business and growth. So super exciting.
And
Go on, Beverlie.
I think too, you're approaching it right through a customer lens. So if you're doing a go-to-market strategy, then their whole experience is going to be better. So it's a win-win for the company.
Exactly.
Amazing. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. I'm sure we could talk late into the evening. I'm glad we've had both of you on today. So you've been listening to this wonderful conversation that's been brought to you by Bigtincan, Sales Confidence, and Arup from Equifax. And we've really enjoyed the content that we've been able to discuss today. This will be available across multiple channels.